Gangster swagger, smooth and slow. Gangster swagger, steal the show. Let me tell you how they play. Gangster swagger never fades. From the streets to the throne, built an empire all their own. Face the mob, face the law. Never bent, never saw. In the shadows, in the light, moving silent through the night. Every move was calculated, every win was celebrated. Gangster swagger, smooth and slow. Gangster swagger, steal the show. Let me tell you how they play. Gangster swagger never fades.
Welcome back. You've entered the underworld. This is Gangster Swagger, where we peel back the layers, where we decode the game, where legends go remember. You're here because you know there's more beneath the surface, levels to this that they don't teach in schools, stories they don't show on the news. This is where the real history lives. So get comfortable. I'm gonna tell you a story. Los Angeles, South Central, 1980s. A young black man who could barely read is moving more cocaine than the Medellin cartel's American distributors. He's making $2 to $3 million per day. He doesn't know it yet, but his main connect, a man named Danilo Blandon, is working for the CIA. The money Rick's making, it's funding a war in Nicaragua. The crack epidemic destroying black communities across America is being fueled by the same government that's supposed to protect those communities. His name is Freeway Rick Ross. Born Ricky Donnell Ross, 1960, Texarkana, Texas, moved to LA as a kid, grew up in South Central, couldn't read, couldn't write, dyslexia, but he didn't know it back then, just thought he was dumb. But here's the thing, Rick wasn't dumb, not even close. He was brilliant with numbers, had a photographic memory, could remember prices, quantities, debts, faces, everything without writing a single thing down. He was a tennis player in high school, actually good at it too, had scholarship potential, a way out, but he couldn't read well enough to maintain the grades. Lost the scholarship. No college, no legitimate path forward. Just South Central LA of the late 70s. LAPD, gangs, poverty, crack starting to creep into the neighborhoods. So what do you do when the system gives you nothing? Rick decided to build his own system. He started small, selling cocaine in the late 70s, hustling, learning the game from an older dealer who taught him how to work. Then Rick learned something that changed everything. He learned how to cook powder cocaine into crack. This was the early days of the crack epidemic. Most people didn't even know what crack was yet. But Rick saw it. He saw that crack was more addictive, cheaper to produce, more profitable. He could sell it to more people, make more money, faster. So he started cooking, started selling, started building. Then he met Danilo Blandon. 1980, 1981, Blandon was a Nicaraguan cocaine supplier and he had a pipeline. High quality cocaine, massive quantities, and here's the kicker, low prices. Rick could buy cocaine from Blandon cheaper than anyone else in LA. He didn't ask questions. He didn't know Blandon was connected to the Contras, the Nicaraguan rebels fighting a war back home. He didn't know that the CIA was facilitating the drug trade to fund that war. All Rick knew was this. He could buy cocaine cheaper than his competitors, and if you could buy it cheaper, he could sell it cheaper. Undercut everyone, take over the market. So that's exactly what he did. By 1982, Rick wasn't just selling cocaine, he was moving weight, serious weight. Kilos, then dozens of kilos, then hundreds. He expanded beyond LA, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, St. Louis, all over the country. He wasn't just selling a user, he was supplying other dealers, building a network. At his peak, Rick was making $2 to $3 billion a day. Not a week, not a month, a day. He owned properties, cars, businesses, car washes, and auto shops as fronts. He employed hundreds of people in South Central, gave them jobs when nobody else would. Here's the thing, Rick wasn't flashy about it. Not like some of these guys. He kept it relatively low-key, reinvested in the community, took care of people. But everyone knew who Freeway Rick was. The respect he commanded, the power he had, the money he was made it. Think about this. Freeway Rick Ross built a cocaine empire that stretched across the United States. He was making millions per day, and the entire time, the United States government, the CIA, was helping his supplier bring cocaine into the country. Not to guess Rick, to fund a war in Central America. Black communities were being destroyed by crack, families torn apart, lives ruined. And the same government that declared a war on drugs was facilitating the drug trade. The LAPD was watching Rick, but they couldn't catch him. He was too smart, too careful. Rivals wanted him gone, but he had too much power, too many connections. The feds were building a case, but it took years. Finally, in 1989, they got him. Rick got arrested, sentenced to 10 years. He got out in 1994. Here's where it gets ugly. In 1996, Danilo Blandon, Rick's old supplier, the man who'd been bringing in cocaine for the CIA, he was now a DEA informant. The government used Blandon to set Rick up a sting operation. Rick got caught again. This time, life in prison. Without parole, mandatory minimum sentencing, no way out. Rick went to prison, and for the first time in his life, he had time to think. He taught himself to read. Finally, at 30-something years old, he started studying law, his own case, the Iran-Contra scandal, and that's when he realized he'd been a pawn in a much bigger game. The CIA had been using the cocaine trade to fund a secret war, and Rick, a kid from South Central who just wanted to make money and survive, he'd been part of it without even knowing. An investigative journalist named Gary Webb wrote the story, The Dark Alliance series. He exposed the CIA-Contra cocaine connection. There was public outcry, protests, outrage. But the damage was already done. Rick was still in prison, serving life. But Rick didn't give up. He fought, appealed, studied, used everything he learned. And in 2009, traded more than 15 years behind bars, his sentence was reduced. He came home. And when he got out, he didn't go back to the streets. He rebuilt his life, became an author, a speaker, an activist. He tells his story now not to glorify the life, but to warn people, to expose what the government did to black communities, to fight for criminal justice reform. But here's one more thing. While Rick was locked up, a rapper named William Leonard Roberts took Rick's name, called himself Rick Ross, built an entire career off of Freeway Rick's legend. The real Rick Ross, the one who actually lived it, he had to watch someone else profit off his story while he was in a cell. That's the cost. So, what did Freeway Rick Ross prove? Intelligence doesn't require formal education. Rick couldn't read, but he built an empire through street smarts, memory, and business sense. He proved that brilliance comes in many forms. The system will use you and then destroy you. Rick was a pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. The same government that enabled his rise was the same one that locked him away for life. Redemption is possible. He came home, learned to read, rebuilt himself, and now he uses his story to teach instead of glorify the life. The warning, know what you're working for. Rick didn't know his supplier was CIA connected. He didn't know he was funding a war. Always know the full picture of what you're involved in. Your name is your legacy. Even after everything, someone stole his name and profited off his story. Protect your legacy. Freeway Rick Ross didn't know he was working for the CIA. He thought he was just a hustler getting his. But when he found out the truth that he was a pawn in a government operation, what would you do? Keep quiet and take the fall, or expose the people who used you even if it cost you everything? This is Gangster Swagger. See you next time.